Well, this is the first episode. This is actually the Putting Greens debut on YouTube. I've had this down now for about a year, and between life and whatever else, camera problems, I've never actually got the video out. So this is a TifEagle green that I've constructed. I really wanted to film it, even in retrospect, just because I think there's a fair bit of interest in backyard putting greens and things like that residentially. And I just wanted to give you some tips, because I did this as a bit of an experiment to see, can I build one and can I build it on the cheap? How hard is it to build it? I've never done it. I'm not a greenkeeper. I work in the turf research world now, but this is not my forte. So I'll take you through the process of how I did this. This whole project cost me probably $500, I want to say. So the first step for sprigging and for what I did here, it was we did get an excavator in and I had to take a bunch of material out. Now, I wouldn't have done that if I was on a super tight budget, or I wouldn't have done that if the soil here was actually okay. But this was all out of grade. It was an old garden. It was just horrendous. So we dug it out. I then brought in about 5 cubic meters of 80-20. So I didn't go a straight sand base, because I knew that I'm not going to be watering this all that often. I don't have a sprinkler system or anything. I just use my normal sprinkler on the end of my hose link to water this when I think it needs it. So this is not super high maintenance. That's the thing that's probably surprised me the most about it. So I brought in all of that material, and then I just basically spread it out, and then I started shaping the green. So I decided I didn't want to go totally flat green. That was partly because of the drainage that we have that comes around here, but also if we did have people out here putting on it, I wanted to make it interesting, and so I can make the pin placements a bit more interesting. So it is actually a little bit contoured, and then I planted in, we've got some gardenias around the border as well. It's sort of right next to the entrance of our house, so it's something cool to have a look at. And then I got this custom flag done up. I'll try to chuck in a link in the description of where I bought this, because it was actually pretty cheap. So in terms of sprigging, the process that I followed for this was I actually got in touch with a local greenkeeper who looks after a bowls club that obviously has a TifEagle green, and what they did was they offered to do a heavy groom. They were doing a groom anyway, and he just said, oh, I'll drop it a little bit lower. It wasn't even a proper scarify, the material that I got here, but it was still excellent planting material. You can see it's obviously been quite effective. It took about 4 to 6 weeks to grow this green in. So he did a heavy groom of, I guess, the perimeter of the actual playing surface. It's called something, I can't remember what it's actually called in bowls greens. I don't play that often or at all. I digress. He's done that with, like, I think it was a Scott Bonner scarifier, like a 46, I think. It's been about a year, guys. And then picked up those sprigs or that material with a brush, and it just threw it straight up into the catcher out in front. Took that material, brought it home. I had the 80-20 all sort of ready to go. I had spent a couple of days previously just watering it, rolling it, evening things out as best as I could, and shaping it. I then took a metal steel rake to it, and I ran this steel rake over the entire surface, and I found that I've had, from a couple of different sprigging experiences, I get the best strike rate using that method. And that's partly because those indentations or those little shallows or hollows, sprigs fall into there, and then by the time you roll it, it sort of lightly top dresses it in its own little way, but it leaves a really, really flat surface after you then roll that in. So you do your corrugations, you simply broadcast your sprigs out, and you want to do it so it's quite even. I had excellent coverage. I had a heap of material left over that I didn't use. Once you've got your coverage, you get a roller. I just had a water roller, so I think that's about 60 kilos, but you can use your cylinder mower if you've got one. Obviously don't mow, but just roll roll it into the surface, and the whole point of that is so it makes really, really good contact with the growing medium, so with the soil. In my case, I had 80-20 here. And so I went in 2 directions rolling it, and then it's up to the watering. So it's basically, oh sorry, I lied. Then I put my products down. Now, I won't lie, I threw the kitchen sink at this a bit in terms of granulars because I'm quite time poor. So I actually didn't do all that much to get this up and going with liquids. The majority of it was granulars, which suits me down in the ground. So I used a slow release phosphorus called Pearl. I spread that out. I think it was 3 kilos per 100 square meters. I used a potassium amendment called Sierra Blend Plus Mini High K. I put that out at about 4 kilos per 100 square meters, so it's quite heavy. I used, what else did I use? Oh, and then I put my granular fertiliser out. So at this point, because they're sprigs, I'm not going to be mowing it anytime soon. I just use ProTurf. So I use ProTurf NPK, threw that out. So I knew, okay, that's going to deliver nutrients. All the research that I read said TifEagle likes potassium. I know that I've got some potassium deficiencies up there, so I threw the potassium out as well here. Then, before I started the watering, I applied Aquasmart, which is probably the lesser known ICL surfactant. So TriSmart is the one that's probably the most popular, and it retains moisture, but it'll also help push the water through the profile. Aquasmart is different in its main, I guess, goal is to retain that moisture. And so I used it because that'll keep the water or any moisture in this sitting closer to the surface. And sprigs obviously haven't taken root yet. That's where you need the area to stay damp. You don't want it pushing the water straight through the profile. So I didn't use TriSmart, I used Aquasmart for the sprigging only until it had taken. And I tank mixed in some seaweed for, root development. So at that point, I didn't touch it then. I just set it up on the tap timer, and the key is set your tap timer to water every 3 hours. So it waters quite often, but it only waters for 2 minutes. So you don't want water running off, you don't want water pooling or anything like that. It moves the sprigs around too much. You just want to make it, the whole surface, just a little bit damp, and you don't want it drying out. Then that encourages those sprigs to actually take, and as soon as they start throwing roots, I was really lucky with the timing of it and the fact that it is a Bermuda. It grew in quite aggressively. So fast forward then, no more liquids. Fast forward then 4 to 6 weeks, and I had full coverage, and I cut it at 6 weeks. And that was with no liquids. So you could actually get on sooner, weekly, fortnightly, and you could actually foliar apply products. So from here now, it's coming out of winter. It's definitely looked better. It doesn't look horrendous, but you can see I've got a lot of weed pressure around the place because I didn't put a pre-emergent down at the time because I wanted the sprigs to take. So what I want to do now is get a bit of a biostimulant down called High Cure from Syngenta. Haven't used it here yet, but I want to try it out. It preconditions the turf for stress, and essentially what I'm going to be doing on the green is I'm going to be spraying the weeds out next week, and then I'm going to be renovating. So it's going to go through some stressful periods. So I'm going to use High Cure, get that in now, and it'll start preconditioning. It's got a bit of nitrogen in it, so it'll push some growth and give a little bit of colour as well, which will be nice. So it is quite simple to actually get your own putting green. Doesn't have to cost the world. No, it's not a perfect construction. No, the playability is not brilliant, but I can have a bit of fun putting. It looks cool, and I really enjoyed working with a dwarf variety as well and actually cutting it this low. At the moment, I'm just cutting it with the Alro, so it's nothing overly special either, so I can't wait to get a proper greens mower on it. I've got a Toro Flex 21 that's in the shop at the moment, getting a sharpen and a whole heap of new parts, which is going to cost me an arm and a leg, but it's got to be done. It has to be done. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to the channel. That is the best way to support me. I'm hoping to create far more content this season and in the future.